This is the Hidden Killers podcast with Tony Brueski.
With licensed psychologist and guest John Delatorre.
What do you think is going through the mind of Bryan Kohberger right now as he sits and waits, and they now have more time to craft that defense? I can't imagine waiting to know what your future is going to be is an easy thing to contemplate or to deal with over a long period of time.
Contrary to popular belief, what I'm going to say is that even serial killers feel emotion. So what I think he's experiencing is anxiety. I mean, clearly he thought that, this stuff was going to be happening a lot sooner, or that he was never going to get caught, or whatever it was that he was thinking. But now that it's not happening that way, I think how he experiences anxiety, though, might be a development of disdain. I think he might be unwilling to allow himself to feel the vulnerable emotion of anxiety, of nervousness, and instead turns it outwards and probably blames everybody else for kind of getting in the way of him having a speedy trial.
Do you think it's something that he did want, was a speedy trial, considering that is what they had been pushing for quite some time, and then it came right down to the moment? And it was suddenly, let's waive our right to this. Was that part of the strategy all along? Do you think they thought that they could maybe make it to that finish line early? Or was this just part of the whole process with Ann Taylor and such, of knowing full well this is going to take longer than till October?
Yeah, I do think this was a little bit more trial tactics. I think it probably really did come to the last minute before they were probably able to convince him that waiving a right to a speedy trial, or, the whole point of a speedy trial is so that you don't have to wait a long time before, the people that have accused you, you're able to confront them. However, the reality is that if you're going to put on a defense, then you need as much time as you can get. And sometimes that means that you're just going to have to sit in jail for a long period of time. So I do think it was more trial tactics than anything else, of just making him understand that you need some time to establish your defense.
There's been a lot made about pictures and videos of him. There's an argument now of trying to get cameras out of the courtroom, concerned that it could affect a possible jury's attitude towards the case, according to the defense. I mean, it's pictures and videos of him in a courtroom. Is this really that big of a concern? Should it be that big of a concern, I guess I should say, considering, he's there, he's not, he's in a suit. He does need to remember to zip up his fly. We'd have noticed that. But other than that, why would they not want the optics on him at all from Ann Taylor's perspective?
I think it's more about this idea that, so I think first of all, we need to dispel the notion that you can't have any knowledge of the case. You can have knowledge of the case. It's just that if you're a potential jury member, you can't allow what you've already been exposed to influence how you're going to be rendering a verdict. You only render a verdict based on the evidence that you observe during the course of a trial. Notes taken, not anything else. What you observed during that time. So I think, though, the problem is that people aren't robots, and they're going to establish an emotional connection between the material that they see about Bryan Kohberger and the person that's in front of them at the time. So your emotional experience and your decision-making is going to be colored by the potential negativity. And so you may end up selecting a verdict that's more in line with how you already felt about the defendant versus what you learned about the evidence presented by the state, which is what you need to be rendering your verdict on.
Isn't it kind of a losing battle, though, to try and make an argument like that of no cameras or don't take pictures of him and things of that nature? There's already a gazillion pictures and video out there, and it will just continue to be used of whatever is in the archive until this trial takes place. Wouldn't it be more advantageous to look at this of, okay, there's cameras here, there's people that are taking pictures, of really coaching him up on how to appear more likable or less standoffish to a camera? Or is it kind of a losing battle with someone like Kohberger where he's just going to look how he's going to look? He doesn't look like a monster per se, but people have their preconceived notions about this guy already.
Yeah, and I think it has more to do with it can't just be that you look better or that you're more like, you have to look more human. You have to look more somber at times when you're supposed to. You're supposed to be able to look like you have actual real emotions and you experience real emotions at appropriate times. But that being said, you as the attorney need to know whether that person is even capable of that stuff. If they're not capable of it, then yeah, you need to make sure that any material that is going out really puts your client in the best light. And unfortunately, for a lot of attorneys, they end up being the proxy of what they want their defendant to be. So the attorney also needs to make sure that they are very cautious in how they present themselves to the media. So it's a double-edged sword of wanting to make sure that your client comes across okay, but also you come across okay, because you don't want to alienate the potential jury members either.
You're locked into the Hidden Killers podcast.
Want more? Start binging on all of our true crime podcasts right now through Apple Podcasts and get an ad-free experience when you sign up to be a True Crime Today Premium Plus member exclusively on Apple Podcasts.
More of the Hidden Killers podcast dropping soon.
Press subscribe now.